We've got a lot of other good speakers today, including our next one, who's an industry icon and somewhat of a legend in the business, Allan Dalton. His background includes being president of a multi-office real estate agency, as well as executive vice president for NRT, CEO of REALTOR.com, the president and co-founder of TownAdvisor.com, and he's been named one of NAR's 25 most influential real estate thought leaders. His topic today is, let's see here, market desegmentation versus niche marketing. Please join me in welcoming Allan Dalton.
Thank you, Dave, for that very kind introduction, and good afternoon to each and every one of you. Last night in the casino, the blackjack dealer told me that he can always tell when there's a real estate convention here in Atlantic City because realtors project such a professional image. Now, the reason I'm referencing this is because it reinforces a distinction that I would like to make today. That being that I think there's a significant difference between how the real estate industry projects its image versus its value. When it comes to image, we could not be in better shape for the following reasons. We invented personal promotion. We write our own glowing reviews. We're prodigiously photoshopped. We're resplendently dressed. And the parking garages here in Atlantic City are brimming with your BMWs, Lexuses, and a litany of other luxury automobiles, including my Bentley. Now, while I'm kidding about driving a Bentley, I'm very serious about the need for the industry to project greater value. And to that end, I've got a few recommendations. My first recommendation is that we pay very close attention to what Confucius and Shakespeare both had to say about projecting value. Confucius once said that all wisdom begins by properly naming and defining your essence. He said that if you don't correctly name your value, that kingdoms will fall and dynasties will tumble. Shakespeare, for his part, in Hamlet wrote that the word must suit the action and the action must suit the word. So for starters, let me say this. I don't believe that the words listing agent suit your actions. And I don't think your actions suit the words listing agent heading into 2016. It would have in the early 1800s, because in the early 1800s, the major way of marketing and selling a home was somebody would go to the general store and post on a list at the general store, home for sale information. But I'm sure you'd agree with me that over the past 2 centuries, there's been a monumental marketing metamorphosis that has taken place. And so the question is, what do we do with this anachronistic, value-killing mischaracterization of your value? To me, I think we should follow the example of the National Association of Realtors because they rectified or changed their name. The first name of the National Association of Realtors, when it was founded in 1908, was the National Association of Real Estate Exchangers. And guess what their slogan was? Their slogan was, uniting America's real estate men. So I'm sure you'd agree with me that they were very wise. They were very wise to follow the singing advice of Elsa and my granddaughter, Grace Powell's, and that would be let it go, let it go, let it go, in terms of the words listing agent. So now if we're emancipating from that marginalistic definition of what you represent, what do we substitute it for? There's 2 choices. Listing agent can either become seller's agent or marketing realtor. At least seller's agent would provide a symmetrical balance to buyer agent, and it would invoke agency. It would have representational value, as opposed to somebody's representing what, a piece of paper? I'm the listing agent? It sounds like your job's all real. That completely undermines your value in terms of that. The next recommendation I have to make is that we should get rid of the sentence that's worshipped in the industry. It's so worshipped that it's been elevated to the Gregorian chant level. And that is this: homes don't sell because of price. That's the all-time realtor value killer, because if the only reason that a home does not sell is because of price, then the only reason a home does sell is because of price, and that deflates the value of everybody in this room to the level of an overpaid appraiser. Now, we're going to have struggles changing that because, again, if the only reason a home doesn't sell is because of price, the only reason it does sell is because of price, we can change that to the only reason that a home does not sell is because of marketing. Because price is part of marketing. But that will be a challenge for this reason. Because the sentence, homes do not sell because of price, have basically, for the past century, exonerated every real estate company, every broker and realtor in America to this point that when a home does not sell, you don't even have one scintilla of responsibility. Because what that sentence does is it basically throws every homeowner in America under the bus of being the singular reason why homes don't sell in this country, because they didn't capitulate to the infallible, meticulous pricing recommendations of their realtor. So therefore, the 100% of the reason the home didn't sell is always their fault. Now that's clever and that's convenient, but that's a value killer. So what do we change? The way to change is to basically embrace what the rest of the world did in the 1950s. In the 1950s, they came up with the concept called the 4 Ps of marketing: price, product, placement, and promotion. Our industry said, hey, look, we're going to jettison 75% of the Ps. We want to be the 1 P of marketing. Everything is price, because that way we can blame the homeowner for everything, and we don't have to have any responsibility for the promotion, the product, and so forth and so on. And so I suggest that we consider 2 paths. And here's the challenge. No matter which path you take, whether you think homes don't sell because of price or homes don't sell because of marketing, they're both logical. The marketing realtor who wants to have value will surmise homes don't sell because of marketing. It could be price. It could be because of inferior staging, which didn't lead to a high enough price to consummate the sale. It could be inferior negotiating. That's how a marketing realtor thinks. This is the value report. Okay, that's how a marketing realtor thinks. The listing agent thinks like this: even if you have the worst staging in the world, if you lower the price enough, somebody will buy it. Even if you have 7 dead bodies in the basement, if you lower the price enough, somebody will buy it. And they go through their entire career seeking the lowest common denominator, as if the greatest skill that a realtor can have is price reductions. The next recommendation has to do with food. I think it hurts our internal sense of value when we have realtors basically conveying that the only way that they're really willing to inspect homes in the market is to be fed. We're converting the industry into caravans of gastronomic incinerators and caterers. Imagine being in the hospital and overhearing a physician say, would you please come up and see my patient? I'm going to be serving a buffet. I'm going to be serving sushi. I've got a great local caterer. The other thing that kills value is the realtors basically who advertise. They should be muzzled. Here's what they advertise: a realtor you can trust. That indicts and pulls down the value of every realtor in the country. I think that's an ethics charge as far as I'm concerned. It reminds me, I hate to say this regrettably, but one of my realtors, I had a problem with the way she positioned the industry. I went on a marketing presentation with her, and the homeowner said, hey, by the way, just so you know, we're going to be interviewing John from XYZ Company. And I'll never forget what she said. Oh, I know John. I have a lot of respect for John. Oh my God, he's done a great job turning his life around. And so the point is, you've got to be, the other thing that hurts value is when realtors apologize for what they do. Hey Max, what do you do for a living? Well, I'm in real estate, but I used to be a teacher. Well, I'm in real estate, but I was 25 years with the government. That's like somebody saying, I'd like you to meet my wife Alice, and here's my ex-wife Betty. That kills value. Another thing that kills value, it's not as prevalent today as it was in the past, is all the real estate companies that would advertise in the newspaper that one of their associates just completed Quick Start. That wasn't an announcement, that's a warning. That's basically saying to the public, you have a chance to work with our least knowledgeable, skilled person. One of the reasons that I was able to fly here yesterday from California, is because when I got on the plane, the pilots didn't say, sit back and relax. The co-pilot and I just completed Quick Start, okay? Another thing that hurts our value is that we should absolutely have a national exorcism over the word comps. It denigrates people, it dehumanizes people. It's the same thing as going to somebody's home and saying, let's get started, we're looking at some comparable children. I've got some pictures here. And it's so dehumanizing to people, it blows up in the face of every realtor. And because they feel less value, the principle of reciprocity, they extend that inference to you in terms of that. How do you change that? You don't say comps. You don't say, let's take a look at some similar homes. Every time you ever say, let's take a look at some similar homes, every homeowner you've ever said that to says the same thing. But they don't have 5 bedrooms. But they don't have a new kitchen. When are we going to learn as an industry? We're killing people. Change that expression to this. Let's take a look at properties that buyers will be evaluating at the same time they're evaluating your home. We don't have to keep offending people because it's killing value. And someday it's going to come back to haunt people. The next suggestion has to do with the way we present pricing. I remember reading that in the information age, the lowest professional value is at the level of data and information, and the highest professional value is at the level of knowledge and wisdom. We have become an industry of data mongers in terms of introducing price. I may not be right, but I'm convinced that basically every realtor in America has been trained to introduce price this way. Well, folks, I went into the computer. I have some information here for you. This would be homes on the market. That would be your competition. This is the list of sales price, his days on the market, his absorption rate. And I also have some macro and micro information. That's why realtors lose listings, because that is so utterly unprofessional. Now, I don't have the time to give you the alternative, but I have developed a 10-minute video. If you email me at allandaltonconsulting.com, I'll send it to you. It will transform the way in which you introduce pricing. You'll still use exactly the same data. You'll still make the same pricing recommendations, but your meeting won't culminate with them saying, we've got to think it over. Because when they're telling you they've got to think it over, it's because they're traumatized with the way the subject is being handled. It's not because they need another week to review your testimonials or give us more time to go over. We hear there's open houses. The next point that I'd like to talk about has to do with what Stefan, who's a real treasure to the industry, what Stefan had to say about the center of the transaction. I've heard so many brokers over the year proclaim at conventions and so-called industry leaders, we've got to keep realtors at the center of the transaction. That is catastrophically naive. That's precisely what the people that I refer to as cyberspace carpetbaggers, that's where they want to confine realtor value to. Let me tell you who the master of the center of the transaction is. Now, I can't discuss individual commissions, that's unethical, but I can discuss stock brokerage commissions and commodity commissions. If you had $1 million of stock to sell on E-Trade, your commission would be about $10. That would be the fee that they get. Because that's all they deserve. Why? Because they're at the center of the transaction. They're not the reason why people buy stock. They don't price it. They don't negotiate it. It's a transaction. It's not managing, marketing, and nurturing a lifestyle decision. But I actually used to hear people in this industry try to compare stock and commodities to real estate. It's completely different. And so the key in terms of not being at the center of the transaction is how can you add value beyond the transaction? And as I come near to the end here, I'd like to give you 2 great examples of this. The first example has to do with something that I heard on Meet the Press about 10 years ago. Mayor Bloomberg was asked, what is the greatest threat to New York? And his answer fascinated me. He said, the greatest threat to New York is London, because we compete for the same talent. So when somebody asks you, a homeowner, or you introduce, how are you different? Rather than see that as an opportunity for self-aggrandizement, I'd rather have you say this. Folks, rather than focus on how I'm different, I'd rather focus on how we have to make your property different. I don't compete against other realtors, but your home competes against other homes. I actually cooperate with the other realtors, but your home doesn't cooperate. And your home is in a fierce competition with the other properties on the market, and I'm going to show you how we're going to manage that. But not only does your home compete against other homes, but your town competes against other towns. Do you think would you agree with that? Is that how the world works? The real estate industry is massively more evolved than marketing properties in towns, cities, and states. A great example of getting away from the center of the transaction and adding value, and instead of sending it instead of being on supermarket carriages. And by the way, I had somebody call me about a month ago and said, Allan, I'm no longer on the supermarket carriages. I said, why not? He says, I went home and my 12-year-old daughter was weeping. I said, what? Why? He said, I went home and she said, Daddy, all my friends at school think you're missing. But the point is this. So Charlie Oppler and Michael Oppler in New Jersey, they've just produced a world-class video called Moving to New Jersey, a Genius Decision, where they leverage Einstein and Edison being there. That's how they'll have access to consumers and get a lot more listings and customers, because homeowners, it's all about them. And we think of the community, of community involvement, as opposed to marketing the community like you market a home. And the last point I want to say in the last few seconds here is this. Because I was in brokerage for so many years in New Jersey and have a lot of friends, people have come up to me and said, Allan, what have you done since you've left Realtor.com? I want to tell you, I've created a website, co-developed a website called townadvisor.com. Like TripAdvisor, Home Advisor, it's based on this premise. The industry, all the tech companies capitulated to the level of aggregation that existed in the industry. We aggregated homes for sale. We hadn't aggregated town, cities, and neighborhoods. But according to NAR research, people are more willing to compromise on the home than the town, city, and neighborhood. So townadvisor.com takes either one company or one associate in every town in America and positions them as the real estate town advocate with a website and a video. And I encourage you to go to townadvisor.com, even though I think for most of you it probably would not fit your present business model, but I think it will give the clearest explanation, in my view, where the value of the industry has to head because of the commoditization of the marketing of homes, independent and notwithstanding of your great staging and negotiating skills. With that, I'd like to thank you very much for your kind attention. God bless you, and God bless your real estate value. Thank you.